Hey everyone, my name is WyrmsEye and welcome back to another episode of the Battlespot Factory, our VGC Battlespot series. So, today will be the last episode that we'll be using this Birmingham Regional's adapted team. As we already find an opponent, Max, in the 1630s, with a team of Salamence, Tapu Koko, Tapu Fini, Naya Ligo, Hariyama and Metagross, so we're jumping right into a battle here. So a lot of interesting stuff on this team. Double Tapu with Fini and Koko, so they pair up well together. We also see a Naya Ligo, so looks Life Orbish to me if I was going to guess. And the Salamence Metagross is something that makes me wary of a potential Bulldoze Assault Weakness Policy Metagross set. So the Salamence will Bulldoze and the Metagross will proc a Weakness Policy boost from the super effective hit. Obviously, because Metagross's stats can't be lowered, it proves to be a very useful way of boosting stats without getting any of the drawbacks. So, gonna have to be very careful with this setup, but we should be able to do something here, I think. I do like Hariyama and Mimikyu here. I think it makes the most sense. And then this is where it gets a bit tricky. I think Metagross is actually a good pick here. Do we want Snorlax? I think we want Snorlax. As I think my opponent actually timed out there, so be interested to see what 4 he's actually brought. I've left Torkoal on the bench here because while it deals with some of the threats very well, it's still not very effective against the Salamence, the Naya Ligo. It's good against the Metagross, which is potentially where we could fall down on. But we do see Hariyama and Tapu Fini against Mimikyu Hariyama. So a lot of interesting options here on the table. I would assume that's an Assault Vest Hariyama as well, so could be somewhat interesting. Going to go for the Fake Out onto the Fini, and I am just going to Trick Room straight away. At the very worst, my Hariyama will be slower than theirs, so Fake Out does go first. Tapu Fini opts to Calm Mind. Not too worried about that at the moment. Obviously, future turns could prove to be a bit of an issue. Actually, it could prove a huge issue. But we do have the option to go for a Poison Jab into the Tapu Fini, and we can play rough into the Hariyama slot. Poison Jab won't do a heck of a lot of damage, but it will be useful in the long run. As you can see, that still does quite a lot of damage, and we see a Heavy Slam into our Mimikyu. Does break the disguise. Suggests to me that the Tapu Fini might be going for a Dazzling Gleam here. A lot of damage onto our to their Hariyama, but theirs just goes for a Moonblast. Does target down our Hariyama slot. Does remove it from play. But I think we now bring in the Metagross here. So we know that the Hariyama obviously can do a lot of damage to our Metagross, but I'm not too worried about it at the moment. Meteor Mashing into Tapu Fini makes the most sense. I think Play Roughing into Hariyama is a good call as well. The Hariyama should go for, I assume, no, it actually might Heavy Slam into Mimikyu. I didn't think about that. Actually chooses to withdraw into their own Metagross. Interesting. Tapu Fini protects. Understandably so. So we do try to get a Play Rough into the Metagross, but unfortunately it avoids. I am somewhat concerned now that Metagross could be a major threat. How many turns of Trick Room do we have left? 2. I think whichever way we go about it, we're going to be in some difficulties. So, Meteor Mash in Tapu Fini, I think, is still a safe play. Should get some decent damage onto it, if not knock it out. Snorlax should be able to take whatever comes out from this. Oh my word. We in trouble! But the Meteor Mash on our side does pick up the Tapu Fini, which is nice. But that is a slow Metagross, or at least speed time with ours. Yes. Hariyama's gonna close combat at Snorlax, surely. Or fake it out. I think we need to facade into the Hariyama. I think we need to double target it. Fake out, probably into the Metagross. Yep, that makes sense. We will get the facade onto their Hariyama, so at the very least we are doing some damage. But that Meteor Mash... Oh, we avoid. Well, that puts the cat amongst the pigeons. Do see a Salamence. Yeah, I think what we've got a problem here is Metagross just wins. Metagross just wins against us. And the Salamence choosing to Dragon Dance I think is a bit greedy, but I can understand the reasoning why to a certain extent. If the Meteor Mash from... Ooh. If that missed, I would have been laughing. Okay, okay. Just have an opportunity here. Right, we know that theirs is slower. Can that Salamence do enough damage to knock out Mimikyu? Because the Metagross is just going to go for a Meteor Mash into the Mimikyu. Oh, this is a dangerous move. This is so dangerous. I think not targeting the Metagross with... well, it's kind of worked and kind of not. That Bullet Punch is going to do a lot of damage. Yeah, no way we were so critical hit as well. Oh, please give me an attack boost. Nope. And I think the Salamence actually just wins out from here. It depends what move it actually does have in terms of dealing with Metagross. Might not have anything. Might just be... so it's just bullet punching. Interesting. Not a lot of damage. Ah, Tech Rage. Okay, yeah. That'll do the job. Yeah, so... probably... I'd assume Earthquake Protect, Dragon Dance, and Probably Dragon Claw then. Yeah, and we can't take that. Which is a shame, really. Could even be Bulldoze, actually. Like I said, it doesn't necessarily have to be Earthquake here, but I would assume it could make a lot of sense that it's Bulldoze. Good game to my opponent there. I feel slightly agree, but obviously the Metagross there was a big win condition, and we didn't bring Torkoal, so it's our own fault, really, that it proved to be such a nuisance. Yeah, not good at all. I'm just thinking, how could we have best served ourselves going forward? See, I was very mindful that that Metagross had the weakness policy. I'm 99% sure that it did, which is why I was being very careful not to go for Crunch or for Shadow Claw or anything like that onto it, because I knew that it could take me out. The Bullet Punch was a bit of a surprise, but it shouldn't really have been a surprise, considering that my opponent doesn't have Tapu Lele with them. It had Finny and Coco. So losing Mimikyu quite tamely was a bit of a disappointment, but the way that he played earlier, he wasn't targeting down the Mimikyu as sort of like as forcefully as he could have. Yeah. Yep. But overall, that is a very strong team core, I think, and it does show. Salamence is not a pick very often used, but I think in tandem with Metagross, it's becoming very popular, as we find a Japanese opponent, Merlin, in the 1700s, with a team of Murkrow, Arcanine, Tapu Koko, Garchomp, Buzzwole, and Tapu Lele. So right away, there are a few things that really stand out to me. Murkrow is a very unusual prankster setter, but it does have a lot of good options. Access to Tailwind, to Quash as well, I do believe. Also gets aspects of Feather Dance. It's got a plethora of supportive, disruptive moves that it could have at its arsenal. Coco Lele, good combination. Arcanine, Garchomp, very strong core, and the Buzzwole will be something that we will have to bear in mind. We will need to deal with that in some way. I can't really lead Hariyama because of the Lele threat that's on the table, so I think Mimikyu and Metagross make the most sense. Maybe, kind of, yes. Torkoal, and I think if we can have Hariyama at some point, that's still going to be a strong option. Because Hariyama still can do a lot of work. It does have options to Poison Jab. It does have Knockoff as well, which could be very useful. I think our main problem is going to be getting around the Murkrow here. Trick Room isn't going to be so hard to set up. If the Murkrow comes in and it quashes, say, our Torkoal's Eruption, it gives an opportunity for other things to do major damage onto our Pokemon. So we see that the Arcanine is faster than Tapu Lele, so Lele definitely isn't scarfed at the very least. I don't think I go Boom here. I do not think I go Boom here. So I'm going to Trick Room. What's they got in the back? Do they have anything that was... they do have Murkrow. But I'm not necessarily worried about Murkrow, so I'm going to attempt to Zen Headbutt this Arcanine. So we see a Heat Wave. Oh, that's a Shattered Psyche Lele, isn't it? It's a Shattered Psyche Lele. No, it's a Psy Shock. shouldn't survive. That's got to be Life Orb then. Oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. I don't think we can win this. If they have Garchomp in the back, they bring it in now. You bring it in now. Right. I can't use Eruption because I'm outside of Trick Room, so... I mean, Torkoal might survive the Psyshock. I don't think it can survive the Psychic. Sending a Headbutt into Buzzwole should knock it out. It just depends how well this Buzzwole is trained in speed. If it's faster than the Metagross, which it very well could be. Oh, it's a Nature Power variant. Yeah, we're doomed. Interesting choice of using Nature Power, and we do see the Buzzwole outspeeds us, so... yeah. Nature Power is a good option on Lede, actually, I do agree with that. We got nothing! Ah! And Snorlax wouldn't have been a good pick either, so... Snorlax could have been good to bring in lieu of the Torkoal on that second turn at the very least, but we had problems of our own. We would have still been in such a deep hole. So yeah, I'm just going to run from this one. Well, good game to my opponent. And as you can see, this team is just struggling at the moment. People higher up the ladder and generally who know the team very well are very acutely aware that if you can target the Mimikyu down and remove it from play, nothing the team can otherwise do from that point on. So it is a very real weakness with this team, and something that quite honestly makes it incredibly difficult to really get around. And I think it may need Protect or Mimikyu over Psych Up. As much as it pains me to say that, or to not run something like Shadow Claw or Play Rough on it and run Protect instead, because there is obviously that huge area of it gets targeted a lot, so it might just be worth for adapting the team at the very least to put Protect on it. Removing Shadow Claw possibly is a better option over Play Rough, though there are pros and cons to that really. We do have another opponent though, Diego, with a team of Pheromosa, Celesteela, Gastrodon, Arcanine, Carbink, and Blissey. Blissey, Blissey, Blissey. Right. I'm quite content to try this. I think this is a team where a staller like this team, Blissey is almost certainly going to carry stuff like Minimize. The Carbink is an odd one, but I would assume that it's got something like Power Trick. No, not paraffin. There's a defense guard or guard split, something along those lines that will give it some defense to the Blissey. That's what I'm expecting to see. See, Arcanine Pheromosa, so an aggressive lead here. This is the thing, do they double target into the Mimikyu straight away? Do they try and use Raw? Oh, this is a tricky one. I'm going to Trick Room here. And I think my best bet is to definitely Explode. I don't care if I lose both at this point. High Jump Kick into Metagross. Fine by me. So, double targeting the Metagross, it seems. Interesting choice of move, but I can't really fault them for that. We do get our Trick Room up though, which is always good. Oh, we got Hariyama in the back, not Torkoal. Ooh. Yeah, we've got to go Hariyama. We can't not that's a real shame actually. If we brought in Hariyama, we might have done some decent work on this. So what I'm going to just do is Shadow Claw into the Arcanine, fake out the Pheromosa. I don't want it taking any... we see Pheromosa switch out in favour of the Gastrodon. Mare play, mare play. Still does a lot of damage. Shadow Claw not doing too much, and the Arcanine chooses to Will-O-Wisp into the Mimikyu here. Oh, I could have done with... Don't really have a leg to stand on here, do I? Oh, that is such... Oh... Yeah, now they're just playing me. And we do get the knockoff onto the Gastrodon, so that's at least something. Waterium Z? Not something you see very often on a Gastrodon. Have been known to see Groundium Z on Gastrodon. Normalium, especially if you're using something like Stockpile. Well, dang. Shadow Claw into Gastrodon. I still think a close combat into the Blissey should do more than enough to knock it out. But these switches are doing very good to disrupt. I'm not with it today, am I? Still do a lot of damage. Just pick up the knockout. I'm being schooled hard here. We have removed the Arcanine. It's the Pheromosa now that is the biggest issue. But we do have a turn of Trick Room left. So if they bring in Pheromosa here, that could be interesting. But they chose to bring in Blissey. They've just given me an out. Right, Psych up with Mimikyu onto the Snorlax, and we are going to Belly Drum. We're going to take this opportunity now to turn the screw. Do you see a Scald into the Mimikyu, so breaking the sub there. Okay. And a Flamethrower. Not doing a lot of damage though. That's cool though. So I can definitely Shadow Claw into the Gastrodon. I can definitely Facade into the Blissey. If you get a double knockout this turn, that would be brilliant. Blissey continues to use Flamethrower onto the Mimikyu. A lot of damage. Blissey goes down. So we've managed to pull this back to a 2v1. The million-dollar question. Is this a Focus Sash Pheromosa? Place your bets, please. Opting to poison jump the... Yeah, that makes sense actually, because then the high jump kick should have enough to take out the... No life orb. I assume this has got to be Focus Sash. Yeah. So, my out is basically high jump kick misses. Has happened before. Chooses to protect. You know that I don't have it. You've got to assume that I don't have it. This should KO. If it didn't, I'd be worried. Yeah, so I don't think we could have done really anything with that. We managed to bring it back to a 1-0, which I think is more than what I was expecting when we lost the Metagross early to a high jump kick and Flare Blitz combination. We also lost Hariyama quite cheaply as well, which is a real shame. We did manage to knock out the Arcanine at the same time, but give or take, that wasn't a big deal. I mean, it was a big deal. It helped us bring in Snorlax without fear of being intimidated, and I don't really agree with their player bringing in Blissey as the secondary option to follow up that Arcanine. If they'd have brought in Pheromosa on that point there, they would have instantly sealed up the game, in my opinion. So I think they made it a lot tighter than they needed it to be. Was there a way that I could have pulled that back? I can't remember if the Trick Room ended on the turn that I knocked out the Gastrodon or whether it was the turn before. If it was the turn before, I could have Trick Roomed again on that turn rather than try and knock out the Gastrodon itself with the Mimikyu and do it with the Snorlax. If I got the Trick Room up there, I would have had full option to really apply a lot of pressure to the Pheromosa, which it couldn't have dealt with. So I do need to go back and look at that, because that might have been an error on my part, not noticing when the Trick Room ended. So I have to review that one, but I'll let you guys know down in the little description bar below what the actual answer to that out was. If there was an out there, I'd certainly like to know that it could have been done at the very least. But yeah, really disappointing end to this team's tenure on the channel. We've had 5 consecutive losses, so I think total we've had like 5 wins and 8 losses across with this team, which is pretty poor, all things considered. It's still got a ways to going actually making this, I think, a better team, and there are aspects that do need changing. I do think now, looking at how targeted Mimikyu is at the start, bringing Protect on that moveset might be a better option. I know Lee Provost has suggested that I bring Feint onto the Hariyama, so finding a move slot for that will be very important. And yeah, I don't know quite what to do about the Metagross, whether I want to actually make it just a little bit faster or not, because it is still susceptible to double targets. It can take 1 hit, but it can't take 2 at the start, which although it's going to go and use Explosion, ideally it needs to be in a good speed bracket where it can get that explosion off, I think. So it might actually be worth doing a much faster Metagross, sort of like max speed, max attack, and 4 in HP, and using Metagross as a gauge of how fast opponents are. So that might be something that I'll have to look into. The Snorlax as well, it's adamant, but it might actually be better off Brave. Give it a little bit of speed investment, but not a heck of a lot, just to put it above a complete min-speed Snorlax, so I know in a mirror matchup how I want to play it. It isn't the most ideal or eloquent solution, but if I know that I can Betty Drum outside a Trick Room and I have the advantage there, I can at least use that knowledge to my advantage. But there are obviously aspects that need looking into with this team, so I could look to adjust it probably in my own time, but I will hopefully be bringing a brand new team out for next week. So until next time, guys, obviously ending on a bit of a somber note here, but do like, comment and subscribe if you want to keep in touch with any of the content that comes out on this channel. Do let me know if there's anything that you would like to see used on this channel. Any suggestions are gratefully appreciated, and I will see you guys next week on the Battle Spot Factory. So, bye-bye for now.